Good. Let's continue refactoring Futurecam. We need to figure out whether to make mode a protocol or a class. Initially it was a class, but the problem with classes is they can have a lot of implementation. So if you have the camera class talking to the mode and you have different subclasses like light trail mode and some other mode, time lapse mode, what will happen is there's some implementation here, there's some implementation here, and there's some implementation here. But having implementation here doesn't make sense. This is intended to be like a protocol or an interface for Java engineers, because there's no reason to have implementation here and here. If something is specific to a mode, it should be here or here. If something is common between modes, it should be here. Like, why is this class there, right? And when you have implementation in too many places, it causes coupling. And I made this video about coupling, which I link. Coupling is bad. It makes your code worse. It also causes the yo-yo problem. Where control keeps bouncing between different classes and it's hard to read, which we had. So now we want to fix it. That's why we made it a protocol. But then we got a whole bunch of compiler errors. We need to work through them. Before we continue implementing this, let's validate our decision. Why is mode a protocol rather than the class? There are some pros and there are some cons, and the pros outweigh the cons. Protocol ensures that there is no implementation, preventing the yo-yo problem and high coupling. A class, what are the pros and cons? If I were to make this a class, some of these I won't be able to have default implementations. So then I'll have to have runtime failures, because Swift doesn't support abstract classes with abstract functions the way Java and C++ and other languages perhaps do. And we don't want to have runtime failure. It's better to have a compile time failure. There's a small amount of implementation that can be deduped for these three, but they are trivial, so it's not a big deal. Because if you see here in, let's say, light trail mode, it takes a camera as an argument, it stores it in a local variable, and you have to, okay, we'll take a different example. Long exposure mode. It takes a camera, again you can see it's similar to light trail, assigns to a local variable, and you have to declare the local variable. So there's some small amount of implementation that can be deduped, but that's just like one line, so it's not really a reason to go with a class. You have static members, default mode and available modes. So here you have available modes, because on some phones we don't offer burst mode, when they don't work fast enough for us. So this gives you the list of modes. And then there's also default mode, which is, when the app opens, which mode does it open in. So these cannot be, this will create a compile time error, because in a protocol you can't have these static things. In a class you can. So currently we'll have to make them global if we have a protocol, but that's okay, they're effectively global. Just the namespace doesn't make too much of a difference. One more thing is Swift offers class methods. So if you have a static function, so let's say you have a, this is an example I gave in a previous video. Let's say you have a payment method, and within that you have different types like debit card, Bitcoin wallet, or whatever the crypto guys call it. Don't ask me about that. Now if you have a static function, right, like whatever class payment method static is enabled, which returns a bool. This cannot be overridden, right? Statics can't be overridden, they belong to this class. You can have an instance method which can be overridden, and instance methods have access to self or this, they can access the properties of the object. You can also have a class method in Swift. What it does is, in a sense it's static because it belongs to the class, it doesn't have access to self, it cannot access the instance variables, but it can be overridden. So the way you do it is, by passing a meta class. Meta class is an object that represents a class. Different languages have different syntaxes. In Java you say whatever my class dot class, now you get a class object. And you pass that, and here this is how you invoke it. But it's okay, we don't need to have class members because they just add too much confusion. In some cases we are passing an object, in some cases we are passing a meta class, and meta classes are very unintuitive. Some of these very advanced programming language concepts you should really think twice about using. Like, it sounds cool, it sounds appropriate, but the reader doesn't understand, including me. So that's one thing. And you access the class object this way, class name dot self. And sometimes you have to do dot type. I don't know when to use what. I just do something till the compiler accepts it. And then, yeah, this is how you check that it is. Normally, if you have a class, let's say in Swift, you have a class named C and you have an object named O, right? So you have oops, that's not 0, it's O. So you would say let O equal to an instance of C. Later, if you want to check if O is some type, this is how you check it, some class. Maybe it's a base class of C or whatever, right? Subclass of C. So let's say you have a function, you have a class, subclass, which inherits from C and it does some stuff. And you have a func do something, and someone is giving you a object O of type C. Now you can check if O is C. No, it's anyway a C. You can check if it's a subclass and you can do something here. So the syntax is if object is class. However, here you have to check, because this is not an object, this is a meta object. You have to do dot type. So you can see all these inconsistencies and complexities. So advanced programming language features are often not worth using, even if they are theoretically the right solution to the problem, because the complexity gets you. using something simpler that people understand, even if it's not 100% ideal, is the right choice often. So yes, so this is why we'll make it a protocol. So now we'll just fix the compiler errors now that we are sure about our decision. Compute, okay, this does not override anything from superclass. Yeah, it doesn't, because it's not a superclass. So you don't say override, you just say func. It's just implementing. Override means there's already an implementation in the base class. So override is for classes. So I think we'll need to remove these class vars. So sometimes when you make a decision, you take time, that's okay. You can go back and forth once or twice. That's a normal part of programming. Don't beat yourself up that you're not making the right decisions if you're doing it. And then think it through. Write things down. I find that writing it gives me clarity. If I just think in my mind, should it be a class, should it be a protocol, I don't get clarity. When I write it, I can see that the pros outweigh the cons, because the cons are all trivial. This is CM time. Let's fix these file by file. We'll make sure there are no errors in this file before moving on to the next one. Now we'll look at long exposure mode. Okay, this compiles. The way you call these class functions is also odd. You do class name dot. With normal instance properties, you just do this. Okay, this class is good. Self used before init. Yeah, I think we can remove this. We'll get to this later. Now we'll have to go everywhere and change the class to the instance. So here what we need to do is, in the app delegate, how is this current mode type implemented? It asks the UI. Okay, fine. So instead of doing this, we need to ask the camera. It has a reference to the actual mode object. Oh, this is good. So we need to figure out. I think this code can be in the main controller for two reasons. One is it has access to this, the other is we don't need this. Oh, this is just for analytics. Yeah, we don't need this. Log received memory warning, because we don't use it anyway. Thing is, memory warnings on iOS, yeah, we really want to know if iOS terminated the program. The thing is, when you are doing logging in production, you have enough users, dozens of users or scores or 100 plus. So you want to know if the app actually got terminated. So what happens is iOS gives a memory warning saying, hey, we are running low on memory. And if you don't free up memory, it terminates your app. The way it used to work many years back, like 10 years back, was the memory warning was given much in advance of the termination. So you had a chance to work on it. But the downside was you were getting a lot of spurious warnings. In recent years, Apple changed it so that you get it in the last minute, just before you are about to be terminated. So iOS waits till it's 100% sure about the memory situation before sending the warning. But at that point, the warning doesn't do much. So let's skip that. Here you need to get this from the main controller. Let's see if there's anything else in burst saver. Oh, we need access to the mode. I think we are saving it. Don't we have the mode? Okay, self.burst mode. We don't need to do this. There's still one. Okay, it's a warning. Okay, this is good. The burst saver is good. Aspect ratio for current mode. This needs to call the controller. Okay. So here we need to pass the actual mode, not the mode type. Yeah, let's. For now, we'll do this. Later, we can refactor. Don't return false or something. Don't sweep failures under the carpet. If something went wrong, make a big mess. Let the app crash, then you'll fix it. Okay, this class is fine. Is this fine? Apparently so. This one, yes. This one, yes. This one, yes. This, yes. Yeah, whatever. Sometimes a compiler, so basically every initializer in any object-oriented language, every constructor has to call the base class constructor. Now, the Swift compiler in some cases is smart enough to figure out where to insert this call, but in some cases you need to do it yourself. Okay, mode selector, controls controller. Yeah, this is something we were looking at and we got sidetracked, so let's fix it now. This has a reference to the main controller. Interesting how the blurring works with my glass. Anyway, so where else is current mode type used? Okay, never mind, we can leave this alone. We need to have something in main controller which returns the preferred camera, is it? Just a forwarding function. Okay, this class is good. The main controller looks good. Oh, there's already a super in it below. So we can't do that. Now let's see what the problem is. Yeah, it's just this helper functions, delegate and device. Device and delegate, which use self. So you need to initialize before that, and this one and all that. Yeah, so actually you need to initialize here. So used deli, I think it's here. We'll need to make it not a let. So let is a constant, it can't be reassigned. We obviously can't use that. So we need to use it here. And then this one, no. And then the super init moves up. Now as far as the compiler is concerned, it's initialized. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . I'll make this nil, and this is optionally, this is implicitly unwrapped. So people can, the compiler will unwrap it or dereference it. Not dereference, it's not a pointer, but it's an optional. The compiler will unwrap it for you. So just in case somebody accesses it before this, it will crash. Whereas if we initialized it to false, in case there's an access before it is initialized here, the system won't catch it for us. So use the language as much as you can. So in a sense, be lazy. Okay. Okay, this is good. There's main view and mode selector. Yeah, so statics can't be used this way. So what you need to do is, you need to make them global, or we can put it in a class. I think we can put this in user defaults. The reason is that let me think about it. So basically in this app, we track how many light trails a user is taking and long exposures and how many photos in each of the modes. And if you exceed one of the limits, so it's a freemium app, each mode has a limit. You can take 10 long exposures, 10 time lapses and so on. If you exceed any of these limits, that mode gets locked. And the next time you open the app, we want to open it in an unlocked mode, so that at least you try out the other modes. Now, implementation wise, the default mode should be in user defaults, because that's how it's implemented. But I don't think that's a good idea, because you shouldn't put things in a certain place based on the implementation. You should put it based on logically where it belongs. So now the default mode, like if you are accessing this, you don't care how it works. Somehow it tells you the default mode. So where is default mode used? Can also be in that class. Okay, great. We can just put it in the mode selector instead. That will also reduce its scope. Reducing the scope is always good. Okay, cool. Then there's available modes. We'll see where it's used. Again in mode selector, so that also can move. Yeah. Oh, this is a problem, because so when you open a camera app, right, you see different modes like time lapse and light trail and so on. So if you here you see square, photo and video, right? These are the modes. And the mode selector is the class in Futurecam that implements this UI where you can select a mode. It needs to show a name for each of the modes. And that is this one. At this point, you are not instantiating the mode because that will actually set up the camera to capture. So this can't be here. So this one I don't think we can't have a class var here. That is why, so earlier when this was a class, it was a class var. So you didn't need to instantiate the class to get its description. That's okay. We'll use a simple solution. Oops. User description for mode. Mode type. Func. And it should return a string. For is a keyword. Can I use it this way? Yes, I can. Sometimes a traditional non-object oriented solution is the only one that's possible. So here we are taking a meta class, and yes, this is what I had come to this file to check. Oh, we need to have a so this won't happen if it were an overridden function, but that's okay. So now this user description for mode, type. This should actually be called mode type. Actually, let me not change it right now. Let's keep it as it is. That maybe it's a good refactoring, but not for now because there's more than enough here. Okay. So this also cannot be a protocol function because, so the way it works is in the mode selector, if you have taken a lot of videos and the video mode got locked, we show a lock icon next to it. Again, you don't have instance to the, you don't have a reference of the instance. You don't have an instance at all. Is locked is used only in mode selector. Great, so it can move there. This user description, where is it used? It's used in, wait, okay, this is the declaration. Does this work? I never know the Swift syntax. Okay, seems to work. No? Use one of the two. If it works, it works. This should work. That's it. Oh, here I should do self. Huh. This is odd. This should work. Yes. Right, where is logged? I think it's in the same file. So, we will de-object orient this. If it is light rail mode, this is the implementation. If it is long exposure mode, this is the implementation. If it is burst mode, this is the implementation. If it is time lapse mode, this is the implementation. Okay. Okay, 5 errors. We need to figure out what to do here. Aspect ratio for the current mode. Wait, partial results frame, main view, get up, no, I think this, just a search is easier. I am not sure if the mode is instantiated here. Yeah, I think, you know, if you look at the earlier version where we had this class vars, here when we made it a protocol, before that we had this class vars, user description, firebase name, is locked. I think actually all these are class vars. One way of doing this is make them all global functions that take the class as an argument. That way you can access them without having an object. So we'll see where each of them are used. User description, is locked, Firebase name, ideal exposure duration, preferred camera. So if you look at it at a logical level, if something shouldn't have access to self, don't give it access to self. It can only cause bugs. For example, let's say something like if something shouldn't use one of the properties of the object, it can use it now if it has access to self. So you don't want to do that. And the other thing is the time of use. Instance, property or function can be used only after the object got created. But what if you need it in order to create the object? So let's see where each of them is being used and we'll figure out. Oh, Firebase name is not used at all? No, it is used. No, it's not used. Great. Okay, wonderful. Where's ideal exposure duration used? In order to calculate the settings. And I think that happens only after you initialize the thing, so that should be fine. Yeah, take bracket if needed clearly is invoked when the user presses the shutter button, which can happen only after it is created. Is tele better for this scene is one. Camera.meter. Meter is called after the mode is created. Yeah, so meter is not the problem. Let's look for is tele better for this scene. This is the implementation. And it's used in the frame producer. And when is the frame producer used? When the user starts recording and in the burst recorder. And the burst recorder is used after the burst mode is created. So yes, this one is used after creation. Okay. Because otherwise what will happen if you have code like this? Let new mode equal to whichever the mode. Let's say burst mode with some properties a comma b comma c, and then you do camera dot mode equal to new mode. Suppose you set the mode this way, and this parameter b you call ideal exposure duration, let's say. Now if this were a static function like a global function, this will check the previous mode type. So, if you look at mode selector, these, you get what I mean, right? If you are accessing the current mode type. So, that is what you need to be careful about. Okay. Is locked. Yeah, this absolutely before creation. So, this works. This is on the meta class. Preferred camera. Oh, wait. Where else is it locked? Oh, okay, fine, never mind. This is just the implementation. Yeah, so what happens is reset camera is called after you change the mode. Okay, hold on. Here, preferred camera. Yeah, these are the implementations in all the modes. And this is a forwarding function. I have no idea about double tap, we'll ignore that. Here when the mode is changed, you already have the mode object. No, I don't think you do. So here, you change the mode after the animation. So I think here we'll have a problem, because when you call reset camera, the mode is not the correct one. So you need to go with the So basically what this is doing is it's accessing global state, effectively global state. You want this to be done based on the new camera. So basically what happens is in the mode selector, when you tap something, right, one of the modes, it goes to that mode with an animation, and the mode object is assigned only after the animation is completed. In the meantime, if you were to ask the camera what is the current mode, it will give you the old mode. So this might very well set the camera to the preferred camera for the old mode, which is not what we want. Yeah, again we'll make this global. Okay, we'll see user description. Yeah, this is global. So when you make it a function of this type, which doesn't take a object reference, it takes only the class, you don't need to worry about initialization. This is definitely used before creation. So these two user description in the mode selector. In the mode selector uses the following before instantiation. So these have to be ideal exposure duration, yeah, preferred camera, I'm just wondering whether it's better to make them all global. It's used only in AV capture device. We could make it file private here. And then we no longer need the mode. We can stick with the mode type. But it's okay. So if you look at the diffs for this file, earlier this function took a mode type. Now there are two ways to make this compile. Xcode is buggy. Yes, the left side is the older one, the left side is the master version, the right side is the local version. So here we changed it this way because ideal exposure duration now requires a reference to the object. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is make this a global function that takes the type, because this doesn't need the actual class, sorry, the actual object. And it will also encapsulate it better. So let's do that. So only burst mode is different. Abstract video mode, file private, ideal exposure duration for mode dot type, for mode type turns a CM time, and then if mode type is burst mode dot type, then you return something, otherwise you return this stuff. What closure expression? Oh, we need to say func. If it is burst mode, this is deleted, this is deleted, this is deleted. We don't need camera dot session dot device. We can just use self. Yeah, this is not this. For mode. Now if you look in the diff view, editor, side by side comparison, this was called mode. Okay. This is also sorted. What are the changes we made in this file? I don't know why this is highlighted. Oh, it's a current line. So the previous code did not take self as an argument. It only takes a meta class. Here also we take the class. We don't take self. So ideal exposure duration is taken care of. Now we need to take care of preferred camera. Yeah, so let's not do this because it uses self like we discussed. Where is it used? Time lapse mode, burst mode. This is a forwarding function. So everywhere it is mode. Let's just write code in BB edit. I just close this. Yeah, this is the last one, so it's taken care of. Preferred camera for mode type. The default is, so if there will be some cases, otherwise you return dot wide. The aspect ratio we need to work on. We'll work on that. Time lapse mode prefers ultra wide, okay, otherwise wide. If mode type is time lapse mode dot type, let ultra wide equal to dot ultra AV device dot ultra wide. Return ultra wide. Burst mode prefers tele. Wait, which was the place where we deleted it? Okay, there's no comment here. We should be careful not to lose these comments. This we checked. Here, if it is burst mode, we prefer tele, okay. If mode type is burst mode dot type, Nice that it suggests errors even without compiling. Okay, burst mode is done, time lapse mode is done. These are the only things that are different. Yeah, see, the problem with forwarding functions is they make assumptions. This assumes that you are querying the current mode of the camera, and we don't want that. Here what we want to do, reset camera. Let's see who is calling preferred camera. Okay, only in the controls controller we need to find out the preferred camera, and we have the current mode type here, so it's not hard. So what we have done is all these things, preferred camera, it has come here. So all of these are now better encapsulated. It can be used only in this file rather than anywhere. This can be used only in this file, and it's even encapsulated to this class, so it can be used only in this highlighted code, not above in the file, not below in the file. So it's even encapsulated within a file. Preferred camera, ideal exposure duration, Firebase name is removed, user description, is not encapsulated, it's here. Okay, fine, because it's used in multiple places. Okay, is locked is again encapsulated. This is the mode type. Okay, we can even make this, since we prefer extensions. So basically, if you have a func called is locked that takes some class, whatever, something x. So basically, so if you look at the call side, right, instead of doing this, it's always better to write it this way. This is more natural in an object-oriented language. Oh, I don't know if you can create an extension on a mode type. Never mind, let's not make it overcomplicated. 7 errors. Oh, there's aspect ratio. We need to think about that. We'll need to undo some of these changes. It was delegate.current mode type. See, this change, if you look at this is a dangerous change to make, because the current mode type and the actual, so when the user taps one of the modes like time lapse mode or something, this changes immediately, but this changes after the animation. So this and this can be inconsistent. So this is actually a dumb refactoring. I'm happy I'm fixing it. When refactoring, the most important rule is don't introduce new problems. And also don't make unnecessary changes. If you have made 10 changes and later you find out that only 7 of them are really required, revert the 3. Because it's okay to revert it here before you commit. Because otherwise for anyone else in the team it becomes confusing. Things are changing from one way to another for no reason at all. That shouldn't happen. Like yes, it takes more time, but still. Aspect ratio. It's not bad to put it here. Because it's anyway a UI thing, the aspect ratio. In a way, it's also a photography thing. Again, if you see here, when you change modes, sorry if I'm coming across as I'm kind of impatient. I've been up since 3 this morning. So, when you tap a mode to change from one mode to another, first the UI updates. There's an animation, the mode selector animates. The viewfinder changes aspect ratio. Only then, after the animation, the mode is changed. So again, you can't rely on the mode. You need to rely on the class object. So aspect ratio. Aspect ratio. This is different. This is the thing we need to work on. If it is abstract video mode, it is this. Otherwise, it's 4:3. Let's not lose this comment. Returns the aspect ratio that should be used by the viewfinder in the current mode, which is same as the same grammar as the aspect ratio of that will be captured by this mode. Since this is an aspect ratio and not a pixel resolution, okay. Better location manager is the only thing that remains. Let's look at the diffs. These should be huge, bigger than I like. Sheesh, it's underlapping the video, but that's okay. Okay, we have removed this. This can get committed by itself. App delegate and analytics. So that way we are breaking this gigantic commit into smaller pieces. App delegate and analytics. Don't log memory warnings since they are no longer useful. Burst saver, this is just like a syntactic change. This was a class member, now it's a global member. This cannot go wrong. We are not changing a class member to an instance member or anything else, right? So when you are coding, you are a builder, you are building things. When the time comes to commit, become an evaluator, become a critic. Look for how things can go wrong. Imagine your job is to find flaws in this code. Imagine you are a hacker. You want to find any problem so that you can take advantage of it. Put yourself in that mindset and look at your own code with a critical eye. Assume it's someone else's code and assume your job is to find fault in it, find flaws in it. Okay, this is, instead of asking the current mode type, you are just asking this, but again you are still referring to the current mode type, so it's fine. So basically, going back to our helpful BB edit, if you have a function that, like whatever, right, x dot, what's it called, preferred camera. Suppose you refactor it this way, preferred camera, and you pass x as an argument. This is fine. What you need to make sure is you don't get into something else like y. Then you are introducing a bug in the refactoring. So here we are using the current mode type, here also we are using the current mode type. So ultra wide, time lapse prefers ultra wide, burst prefers tele, everyone else prefers wide. This was the same logic as before, but we'll just verify it. Current mode type, burst, no sorry, preferred camera. It preferred ultra wide. Time lapse preferred, wait, time lapse preferred ultra wide. Long exposure didn't prefer anything. Light trail didn't prefer anything. Burst is the only one that preferred tele. So yes, this refactoring is correct. I didn't mess up anything here or here. If it is time lapse, we prefer ultra wide. Let's add a comment why. Time lapses look better with ultra wide. The sky change color and the kids playing in the garden below. Okay, so going back, this is a safe change, and the important thing is it's not a logical change, it's a syntactic change. Whereas, as I said, making something static or non-static as opposed to an instance function is a logical change. So you should set a much higher bar for logical changes. You should be skeptical and ask, is it really required? This is done. AV capture device. This is again a syntactic change. And if it is burst mode, we use this, everything else uses this. So again, we'll verify in all the modes. Time lapse mode, what's it called? Ideal exposure duration. It doesn't have an ideal exposure duration. Long exposure mode, yeah, it uses the default one. Light trail mode doesn't have an ideal exposure duration. Burst mode has one. Light trail mode should have it somewhere. Is it below? Okay. Ah, it's here. Okay, fine. Oh, right. So this refactoring is also correct. Let's move on to the frame producer. Yeah, we made this super.init has moved above. Yeah, this is just like satisfying the Swift compiler. This can be an independent change. Fix compiler error about accessing a property about capturing self. Using self before super.init. Abstract video mode. We have removed aspect ratio, we have removed ideal exposure duration. Removals are always safer than edits. Removed all this stuff. We removed some override keywords to make the compiler happy. We removed this. Removed. Removed a bunch of stuff. So I'm happy about this because there are 6 things that had access to self. So there could be a bug somewhere where somebody could refactor this to use self. Now they can't. And see how small the mode is. You just create a mode. This is part of the protocol because any class can be created this way. Then you tell it the shutter button was pressed when the user presses the shutter button. When he releases it, you tell the mode that the shutter button was released. How simple is it? And all these are logically class properties, the description, the Firebase name. We removed it, but still, it's not specific to an instance. Any time-lapse mode will have the same Firebase name, any instance of time-lapse mode. Likewise, user description, likewise locked. Likewise, ideal exposure duration and camera and aspect ratio. So see, I'm very happy with. I didn't expect the mode protocol to become so simple. And this is how protocols should be. The simpler, the better. Because if you have 2 classes, like this, A, B, the smaller the interaction between A and B, the better. Let's use capitals to denote that they are classes. This is better than this because you have one function between the two. Here you have 2 functions. This is better than having 3 functions. So this thing is good. Available modes and default mode, yeah. Now these had a bigger scope. Anyone in the entire program could use them. Now the scope has been reduced for both of these. Here we are just calling the current mode type, and yes, here we are doing it. Again, we'll verify this. Aspect ratio, nothing is here, nothing will be here as well. It will be in abstract video mode, where it is width by height. Burst mode will be 4:3. Long exposure mode will also be 4:3 because it's implemented here. So yes, this refactoring is correct. This is again a syntactic change. This is a syntactic change, syntactic change, syntactic change, syntactic change. So here we won't commit it here, we'll commit it in GitHub. Now we are going to write a whole essay here. Make resolve compiler errors caused by using mode as a protocol in some places and as a class in others. By making mode a protocol. Why a protocol and not a class? Since the pros of protocols outweigh the cons. Let's see if we can write it as one list. A protocol ensures there is no implementation, preventing the yo-yo problem and high coupling. A class requires runtime failures since it can't have abstract members in Swift. A class allows class members, but these turn out to cause more complexity and confusion than they are worth. Objects in some places and classes in others. This is the first complexity. Second one is type of calls, dot self versus dot type confusion. These are the confusions. While we are at it, remove Firebase name since it's unused. Make the available modes, default modes is locked. Available modes, default mode, user description is the only one. Okay. Controls, preferred camera. So we have removed one, we have made 4 of them file private. This is called a design note. Every commit need not have such a detailed explanation, but occasionally you do. In fact, one of the engineers I used to work with, he would sometimes create a Google Doc for commits, like a Google Doc just for one commit and link it from the commit. Great. Whew. Now the only thing is this better location manager stuff, which we'll take care of in the next commit. So this thing, this class versus protocol thing has been lingering for a long time. In many of the videos, we were facing this problem and we finally resolved this. So this is like a significant step forward for the code. So I'm feeling good now, and I'll see you in the next video.